So, James Martin, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on. Busy life for you, on television, radio, you're everywhere.
Well, the restaurants are busy more than anything at the moment, so I've divided myself sort of 80% in the restaurants and 20% doing the media sort of stuff. So it's flipped the other way. But, I've got 2 restaurants now, so I've got to be in the kitchen. So
Yeah, absolutely. And you are actually active in the kitchen, are you?
Yeah, funny enough, people sort of still come into the restaurant going, "What are you doing here?" Well, you have come in here to eat my food. What do you want to do? But it's important, and it's important for me, and not to. Yeah, you've got to be there, and also I've got a young team in the kitchen, and it's vital that young team can learn off the older people now, I suppose, like myself and the team around me, and that kind of stuff. I enjoy it, and it's weirdly enough, it's my relaxation now. It's because the phone's off, all the computers are away, and I can just concentrate on what I've been doing all my life, and that's cooking.
You've got that focus, haven't you? It's
yeah.
That's great. And has there been many changes with 2013 for you? I mean, what happens with menus? Do you change them? Is a new year meaning the start off with a brand new fresh menu?
Well, kind of. We change it really in January, so the change has been made. We've got some classic dishes that we keep the same, but generally the menu's different.
Now, you've got a new series coming up. It's on Good Food. It's on Sundays.
That's it. The BBC kindly gave me sort of 5 or 6 weeks off during the summer. Well, they didn't. It was the Olympics that did. I was here for the start and the end, and I watched the beginning and the end of the Olympics, and then flew out in between, and I spent sort of nearly 2.5 to 3 weeks travelling around the east coast of America, looking at cakes in particular, because I'd heard so much about the Americans, the way that they bake and their love of baking, but obviously nowadays, and particularly obviously in more recent times, we have got a love of baking in the UK, but it's not to the extent of what it is in America. And certainly the stores that sell the amount of produce, not to the extent of what we've got in the UK, what they've got in America. But it was an amazing journey, and I travelled from Washington all the way up to Salem, which is famous for the witch trials, which was north of Salem, where I visited one of the most original donut shops with a family that have got about one tooth to share between everybody. If that wasn't an advert for eating too many donuts, but what an amazing... It was just amazing. They had this beautiful old shop on this corner, and then you went inside, and they made the donuts the old-fashioned way, and in this big, massive, great fryer, and they coated them in this sugary syrup, and they made hot dogs. Donuts look like hot dogs, and burgers look like hot dogs. It was weird sort of mix. It was a fantastic... But that was the story of the whole journey, and that's what makes America special, I think, is the people, because you go to went to Harlem, and you certainly as a Brit you have a perception of Harlem.
Definitely,
it's nothing like what you think.
Really?
Let's put it this way: me, Yorkshireman farmer, driving a Cadillac, 1980s Cadillac, with the roof down through Harlem. I thought, here we go. But it was a fantastic... we met this amazing lady at this bakery on the street corner where all the gospel, they all come out of church, all dressed up to the nines, and they all come over to the bakery. It's like the hub of Harlem.
Yeah.
And all these roads sort of congregate in this crossroads in Harlem to basically this bakery. And everybody just piles in there afterwards. And I learnt how to make a proper carrot cake there. And it was just great. It was just but that's just one of the stories of many that I learnt on my journey.
And what are the main differences then, James? I mean, is America way ahead of us in terms of technique and style, or what are the differences?
Some things are. I tell you what the Americans are really clever at is marketing. Take a cupcake. You think the cupcakes are quite big over here. Nothing to what they are in America. Yeah. There's a place where we went to that a lady owns. She's like the Jamie Oliver of the America, the cake world. And the guys at the shop said, you've got to be here from 9 o'clock because the queue starts at 9:15. Wow. So what do you mean a queue?
Yeah.
And he said, no, the queue starts from 9:15 to 6:30. And people queue almost 12 hours a day for cupcakes. And she sells, I think it was something between 10 and 12,000 cupcakes from this little small store.
That's incredible.
And she's got 6 stores around the US. And I'm thinking £3 a cupcake.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, that's a lot of cupcakes, But it's an amazing how they market it. Very clever in the way that they do that. And then we met another fantastic lady in New York at the Magnolia Bakery, which is famous for Sex and the City, where they did this icebox cake, which actually wasn't a cake or it wasn't cooking. It was cheating. It was layered up biscuits with this cream mixture. And they put it in the fridge. That's why it's called an icebox cake. And they leave it for 24 hours and then cut it. It's like this most amazing cake. I'm thinking, how good is that?
I like
and
that.
I think
I like the sound of
yeah,
that.
well, yeah, but it's it's one of those things that you don't have to cook anything. You can basically cheat.
It is a cheat.
Yeah,
Love it.
exactly.
Did you come across any of these? I'm really loving it. There's a couple of other programs, I think on the same channel actually, similar kind of thing, where they take a look at these almost like gourmet wagons.
Yeah, they have these trucks.
That's it,
Yeah,
yeah.
the food trucks that have become hugely popular over there. What that does is actually they need a license for the food truck, but they can park it up anywhere in the city. And you think of particularly New York, how expensive it is for real estate in New York, and particularly to rent place. So what the bakeries are doing, they're opening a bakery slightly outside of New York in a place called we went to Dumbo, which is underneath a bridge. You couldn't make this up, could you? Underneath a bridge in Manhattan, where I met a baker and he makes whoopie cakes. So you're never going to make this. If you wrote the script, you cannot make this up. But basically, we followed him, and then the part of the other program is we followed another baker that's just a slightly further away out of New York, in Brooklyn. And they have a food truck, and it's an old post office van. And you know the old post office vans, they're massive over in America, as usual, massive vans. And she bought this van and converted it into this food truck. And then we followed her around, and it blocks the entire street of traffic because we were overtaken by cyclists. It was so slow, this thing. But you park up on the street and they sell their wares. It's a great, and it's become really trendy over there.
Yeah, it has. Some of them are offering almost Michelin star style food, aren't they?
Well, some of them have got seats, I believe, as well. You can sit there and have a meal inside. But it is, it's the way that Americans brace that. It's that go-get-it attitude, and it's something that hopefully comes across on screen.
Just one final question for you, James, and that is New York cheesecake, right?
Yes.
It's something that we've seen in supermarkets and possibly attempted to make ourselves several times as well. But is it really from New York?
Well, the way that you yes, yeah. It depends how it's made. Cheesecake, I believe, is actually Greek. And it comes back to the Olympic Games. I think it was served at the first Olympic Games. But it didn't look anything like New York cheesecake, of course. It was just sweet and cheese, I think. So may correct me, but I'm pretty sure that's where it comes from. But in the UK, we have a set version, whereas in the US, they have a baked version. And they bake it with cream cheese. But one thing I did learn from Eileen's Bakery in New York, which is this little bakery that just all she does is cheesecakes. That's all she does. And it's packed. And it's brilliant cheesecake, and she whips up the egg whites before she folds it all into the cream mixture and then bakes it. It produces a lighter sort of texture to the cheesecake, and that's where you get that authentic, the New York cheesecake shouldn't be too heavy or stodgy. It should be just a little bit light, but it's quite heavy at the end of it, but it should be nice and light while you're eating it, and that's the way that they incorporate the egg whites into it.
And is there a winner on the series? Is there a cake that sort of presides over all other?
Pennsylvania. I went to visit the Amish community, and I met a guy called Steve. Steve, who looks after the ponies, the trekking ponies that tow the little carts things. Yeah. And he took us to a bakery that made shoe fly pie.
Shoe fly pie. Doesn't sound that great.
Yeah, shoe fly pie is a bit like, because there was no refrigeration in America until recent times, obviously. I mean, look at their history. And particularly that area of Pennsylvania, and particularly where it is now, because the Amish, they don't use any fertilizers. It's all done by hand. So you have quite a lot of flies. And when you have basically horse manure on the fields and flies, you have even more flies.
You're not selling this to me, Jack.
Yeah, well, this is the true story. This is where it comes from. So they used to make this treacle tart and basically cover it over, because if they leave it out, you'd have to shoo the flies off it, and that's why it's called shoe fly pie.
Okay.
Nowadays you put it in the fridge, of course, but yeah, that was one of the most interesting stories, and it was That
sounds brilliant.